Delay is not denial. It's divine alignment. There's something powerful about understanding that just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't happen at all. We live in a culture that worships speed, that idolizes instant results. We want the breakthrough overnight, the promotion by next week, the healing by morning, the relationship to be restored in the blink of an eye. But God is not driven by the demands of time. He is the master of time. He moves in seasons, not seconds. He moves in purpose, not pressure. And when God delays something in your life, it's not because he has forgotten you. It's not because your prayers have gone unanswered. It's not because you are unworthy or overlooked. It's because there's something he's doing in the delay. There's alignment taking place. There's a shifting, a repositioning, a preparation, a purification. You thought he was holding it back, but he was actually holding it together. Sometimes we pray for elevation when our foundation is still too weak to carry the weight of what we're asking for. And God, in his infinite mercy, delays the blessing not to hurt us, but to protect us. He knows what you don't know. He sees what you can't see. You're asking for a door to open, and he's working on your character behind that door. You're crying over what hasn't happened, but he's aligning people, opportunities, and timing like chess pieces on a board. You only see the delay, but he sees the destiny. Joseph had a dream, but before he sat in the palace, he had to go through the pit, the prison, and the betrayal. That wasn't denial. That was divine alignment. Every delay in Joseph's life was setting him up for a stage bigger than he could ever imagine. If he would have gotten to Pharaoh too early, he wouldn't have had the wisdom to handle the famine. If he would have escaped prison too soon, he would have missed the connection to the cupbearer. The delay was necessary. The delay was strategic. The delay was alignment. We've got to stop treating delay like rejection. Just because it didn't happen when you wanted it to doesn't mean it's not going to happen at all. Some of you are about to walk into a season that's been delayed for 5, 10, even 15 years. And when it comes, it's going to make sense why God said, not yet. You ready? They weren't ready. The environment wasn't ready, but now the alignment is coming together, and when it hits, it's going to blow your mind. You see, God doesn't want you to just arrive. He wants you to be aligned. There's a difference between achieving something and being aligned with something. When you're aligned, you don't just get the blessing, you can keep it. When you're aligned, you're not just gifted, you're grounded. When you're aligned, the blessing doesn't crush you, it cultivates you. That's what the delay is doing. It's cultivating roots so that your fruit will last. Don't let the enemy trick you into quitting during a divine delay. Don't let your emotions pull you out of position. Stay faithful, stay submitted, stay planted. Because while you're waiting, God is working. He's not asleep. He's not ignoring you. He's aligning things above the surface that you can't see. He's shifting hearts, moving circumstances, opening doors in rooms you haven't even stepped into yet. Just because you don't see movement doesn't mean there isn't momentum. Think about David, anointed to be king as a teenager, but didn't wear the crown until years later. And during those years, he was hiding in caves, dodging spears, fighting lions and giants. That wasn't punishment. That was preparation. He was in divine alignment. The delay shaped his leadership. The delay refined his heart. The delay taught him how to worship under pressure and how to lead without a title. Because when you can remain faithful without a platform, that's when God knows you can be trusted with one. So many people give up in the hallway between prophecy and fulfillment. They abort the mission because of how long it's taking. But I came to tell somebody, don't move out of position just because it's uncomfortable. Don't sabotage your own miracle because it's taking longer than expected. The longer the delay, the greater the development. The greater the development, the deeper the impact. And the deeper the impact, the more God gets the glory. The enemy wants to frustrate you into forfeiting. He wants to make you think that silence means absence. But God does his best work in the dark. Seeds grow in the dark. Babies are formed in the dark. Miracles take shape in the dark. Just because it's quiet doesn't mean it's empty. Just because it's hidden doesn't mean it's not happening. The delay is not a desert, it's a development center. And God is working behind the curtain. God trains you in private before he elevates you in public. Everybody wants the spotlight, but nobody wants the silence. Everybody wants the platform, but nobody wants the process. Everybody wants to be celebrated, but few are willing to be shaped in secret. And yet it is in the hidden places, in the quiet corners of your life, where God does his most important work. Because God will never elevate you publicly until he has established you privately. You want to be used by God, but first he wants to build something in you, something real, something strong, something unshakable, something that can stand the weight of where he's about to take you. Because elevation without preparation is dangerous. Promotion without process is poisonous, and God loves you too much to let you arrive without being ready. He pulls you into the wilderness not to punish you, but to prepare you, not to reject you, but to refine you. And the wilderness is not a wasteland. It's a workshop. It's where he teaches you how to pray without applause, how to worship without a microphone, how to trust when there is no spotlight, no platform, no affirmation, no confirmation. Just you and him in silence. That's where he shapes warriors. That's where he breaks pride. He kills ego. That's where he reveals himself in ways you never knew you needed. Because if you can be trusted in obscurity, you can be trusted with opportunity. If you can serve without being seen, you can be trusted to lead when everybody's watching. And God will not allow the weight of visibility to crush someone who hasn't been tested in hiddenness. Look at Moses. 40 years in the backside of a desert before he ever stepped foot before Pharaoh, before he ever held a staff in front of the Red Sea. He was leading sheep in obscurity, forgotten by men, but remembered by God, trained in solitude for a mission that would shape history. And the bush didn't burn in Pharaoh's palace. It burned in the wilderness, in a dry place, a quiet place, a hidden place. Because that's where God speaks when he's preparing you for something greater. Look at David, anointed in the field, but not appointed until years later, playing harps for sheep before he ever played harps before kings, killing lions and bears in private before he ever faced Goliath in public. He learned to lead when no one was clapping. He learned to fight when no one was watching. He learned to sing when no one was listening, because God had to make a king in the dark before he revealed a king in the light. Some of the greatest lessons you will ever learn will come without an audience, without recognition, without validation, because it's in the secret place that God builds the stamina to stand in the spotlight. And if you despise the private training, you'll never survive the public pressure. You want God to open doors, but can you handle what's behind them? Can you carry the responsibility? Can you withstand the criticism? Can you steward the influence? Because favor without formation is a setup for failure. And before God puts a crown on your head, he'll put a cross on your back. He'll teach you how to suffer, how to wait, how to serve, how to forgive, how to persevere. Not because he's trying to break you, but because he's trying to build you. And sometimes that training doesn't feel spiritual. Sometimes it feels like rejection, like abandonment, like silence from heaven, but God is not absent. He's intentional, he's strategic, he's surgical, cutting away what can't go with you into the next season, breaking off relationships that would sabotage your calling, removing habits that would ruin your future, refining your motives so your character can match your calling. When God hides you, it's not because you're disqualified, it's because you're in development. And when God trains you in private, he's putting roots down deep so that when you rise, you won't be shaken by storms. You won't be seduced by applause. You won't be corrupted by success, because you've already died to those things in the secret place. There's a generation of people who want the platform before they have the posture, who want the microphone before they learn how to be quiet, who want the followers before they learn how to follow. But God's kingdom doesn't work like that. God promotes servants, not stars. God lifts the humble, not the entitled. And before he blesses you in front of people, he tests you alone in the shadows. If you're in a season where it feels like nobody sees you, where your gift is unnoticed, your work is unrecognized, your calling feels delayed, don't despise it, don't run from it, because God is doing something sacred in secret. He's teaching you how to carry weight, how to be consistent, how to be faithful when it's not fun, how to press forward when there's no applause, how to stand firm when all you hear is silence. That's not punishment. That's training. And you're not being buried. You're being planted. You're not being overlooked. You're being outfitted for something that requires greater capacity than you've ever had. And when the moment comes, when the curtain opens, when the light turns on, when the opportunity shows up, you'll be ready. Not because of what happened in public, but because of what was built in private. Your triumph is tied to your trust in the timing. You cannot separate the victory from the waiting season. You cannot walk in the fullness of what God has promised until you've learned to trust Him in the meantime. The in-between, the hallway where the doors haven't opened, but the old ones have closed. It's in that space where your faith is either forged or fractured, and how you handle the waiting will determine how you walk into the winning. Everybody wants the triumph, but few are willing to trust the timing it takes to get there. We shout over the promise, but struggle in the process. We celebrate the destination, but complain during the journey, and yet the journey is where the preparation lies. The process is where the power develops, and the waiting is where the worship becomes real. Trust is not just believing that God will do it. Trust is believing He knows when to do it. Trust says, even when I don't understand the pace, I still believe in the plan. Trust says, even if the clock is ticking and I see no change, God is still on schedule. Trust says, I'd rather be in God's timing with nothing than outside His will with everything. And trust isn't always tested in chaos. Sometimes it's tested in silence, in stillness, in those long seasons where nothing looks like what was spoken, where the vision you're carrying feels so far from the life you're living, where God gave you a word, but the world gave you resistance. And in those moments, your triumph depends not on your hustle, but on your surrender, not on your strategy, but on your submission. When you trust the timing, you stop comparing your chapter to someone else's highlight reel. You stop measuring your progress by what others are posting, and you start realizing that God is not late concerning His promises. He's just writing a different storyline for you. He's not slow, He's strategic. And what feels like a pause is actually a setup. What looks like a detour is actually a design. Look at Abraham. He was promised a son, but had to wait decades to see it. And every year that passed looked like proof that it would never happen. But God was aligning generations, setting up legacy, building faith. And when Isaac came, it wasn't just a baby. It was a miracle that came through trust in the timing. Look at Jesus. He could have started his ministry at 18. He could have performed miracles as a teenager, but he waited until he was 30, because even the Son of God submitted to divine timing. And when the time was right, the heavens opened, the Spirit descended, and the Father said, "This is my Son, whom I am well pleased." Because obedience in obscurity is still seen by heaven. Some of you are trying to accelerate what God is asking you to trust, trying to force open doors that are not on heaven's schedule, trying to make things happen in your own strength and calling it faith, but faith doesn't force. Faith follows. Faith doesn't panic. Faith perseveres, and your triumph will not come from manipulation. It will come from maturity, from trusting God enough to wait without whining, to be patient without pressure, to worship while you wait. Trusting the timing means you don't need to see the whole staircase to take the next step. It means you obey the instruction even when the outcome is unclear. It means you build the ark before it rains. You dig the ditches before the water comes. You gather the jars before the oil flows, because your obedience in this moment is connected to your overflow in the next. There are blessings that only come on schedule, not on demand, breakthroughs that require alignment, not anxiety. And when you try to receive prematurely, God designed for maturity, you mishandle the miracle. So trust protects you, trust matures you, trust holds you in place when your feelings want to flee. Trust is what ties your today to your tomorrow, your seed to your harvest, your pain to your purpose. Some of the greatest pain comes not from the process itself, but from resisting the timing of the process. When you start to believe the lie that you're behind, that it's too late, that you missed your moment, and you begin to rush, to settle, to compromise, to take shortcuts, forgetting that anything you build outside of God's time will demand your effort to maintain. But what God births in His time, He also sustains by His power. You don't have to force what's meant for you. You don't have to chase what's part of your calling. You just have to be found faithful, steady, present, obedient in the small things, because the big doors swing on small hinges. And when you trust God's timing, your consistency becomes your currency. Your faithfulness becomes your favor, and God opens doors that no man can shut